Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bio. This week I'm joined by Daisy Ferns, who is a business owner who built multiple businesses to six figures using one core skill, which is consistent conversation-led lead generation. Daisy helps business owners create predictable sales without relying on ads, viral content, or huge audiences, using simple systems that support real conversations, simple follow-up, and sustainable growth. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Daisy.
you. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, good to have you. And now you've built multiple businesses from this one core skill. Where did that skill come from? And is it a natural or learned skill?
They're such great questions. Where did it come from? I think it's partly natural because I've always been a talker. And the only thing I ever used to get into trouble at school for was talking too much. I was such a goody at school, but yeah, the only thing I ever got, I think I had like 2 detentions ever at school, but it was always for talking too much. So it's a natural, it's just me. It's my personality. It's a natural passion of mine to talk to people, to find out about them. And I think over the last few years, I've realized that I'm really good at remembering names and details about people, which really helps when you are, well, when you're talking to people, when you're talking to potential customers, when you're taking them along this buyer's journey. However, I think this can be taught as well, because as long as you are prepared to talk to people and put the work in, there's ways in which you can get people to open up, the ways in which you can lead the conversation that absolutely can be taught. But you've just got to be prepared to talk to people. That's all.
Well, I can certainly talk when I get going, so I'm hoping I'm going to learn some stuff too. So, at what point did you realise that showing up and talking as yourself is actually your biggest asset when it comes to generating leads?
I think it's been really in the last couple of years. So I've been in business for several years. I started off actually in the parenting space. I had a couple of parenting brands. And people used to say to me, "Oh, you've kind of really built these up from nothing. How have you done it?" And I'd say, "I don't really know. I've just kind of got out there and talked to people." And then it was a couple of years ago, somebody said to me, "You're really good at this. Could you do it for me?" And obviously, I had to learn about their business and obviously tweak and refine things so that it did fit her business. But I did it, and we got loads of calls booked in, made more and more sales for her. So somebody else said to me, "Can you do it for me as well, please?" And this is whilst I was running my parenting businesses. So I said, "Yeah, of course I will." And it really took off. And it wasn't until one of our clients said to me, "Why aren't you doing this full time? Why isn't this your thing?" That it really made me sit back and think, do you know what? Yeah, this really is where my passion lies. So it was kind of an accident that I discovered that it's my zone of genius, if you like, and decided to go all in on the lead generation agency. And now we work with people in lots of different businesses, different sectors.
How do you get to know the different sectors to be able to have these conversations, or are you helping them to have the conversations?
No, so with our done for you services, we're doing it for the business owner. As we're not pretending to be them, but we're kind of their team. So I guess it's like anybody else going into any industry that they don't have a huge amount of knowledge about. You ask questions, you read up on things, you're in a conversation with the business owner. So I don't know, if I was to go into something like engineering, just plucking something out of the air, as an administrator, I wouldn't have a clue about engineering. I know about my role, I know what to do in admin, but I learn as I go along and I ask questions and yeah, I do my research. So it's that really, it's finding out. But it's also being able to say to a potential client, "Do you know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to go away and find that out for you from the business owner," which I think whatever industry you're in, whether it's lead generation or anything else, I think that's really valuable, being able to say, "I don't know that, but I'm going to come back to you and find out."
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think it's really
Mm.
important that you're not pretending to
Yeah.
be anything else. So I think that's really clear. When you talk about conversation-led lead generation, what does that mean in practice for a business owner who feels awkward about sales? Because so many people, I know so many people that are great at delivering, but it's the sales bit where they fall down in a business?
I think there's a few things there. I think, first of all, part of it is mindset around selling. And it feels, I think we've been brought up on this kind of bro culture, haven't we? Or the, sleazy car salesman type thing. And I think it puts a lot of us off. It really does. But it's trying to think of what you're doing as a service, and therefore you're doing people a disservice if you're not offering them what it is that you've got to offer. And I think it's important to point out at this point is that we don't typically do cold lead generation. So what we typically do in our agency, I'm not saying this is for all lead generators, but what we typically do in our agency is we work with inquiries that are already coming in. We work with people's warm audiences. We work within our network to refer people because we see across a range of businesses. We're not going out there and trying to push things on people that haven't inquired. So that's the first part of it, is mindset. And I think when you've got inquiries coming in, so let's say you're a business that sells via Google Ads or I don't know, something, just plucking something out of the air. You're putting the content out there, you're putting your product, your service, your lead magnet out there. People are inquiring, and it's then at that point you're picking up in a conversation. So rather than some kind of copy and paste script, or rather than, let's send you my prices, off you go, you're never going to hear from me again until you buy. It's not that. It's thinking, right, this person's inquired. How do we nurture them? How do we make sure they've got all their questions answered and all the information that they need? How do we qualify them to make sure they're actually right for this product? What's the next step so that's leading them along that journey? So it's kind of having an overview of the buyer's journey. How can we make it more personal along the way? And it doesn't have to be, making a phone call and having a conversation with people. It can be in whatever way the business owner feels comfortable and or what the customer wants. So it's quite personal to each business, really.
Which is how it should be.
I think so.
Yeah, I totally agree. Why do you believe that authenticity outperforms polished marketing when it comes to sales?
I think part of it is just because that's me in general, really. I'm the queen of imperfect action and just putting it out there and, do it now and get better later. But no, I think in the kind of world that we live in 2026, in all of the kind of AI generated perfection, and people want to know that they're speaking to a real person, to a real human. And you know what? Real humans make mistakes. We don't have to be polished. Just show up as you are. And I think we can be really put off sometimes as well, and maybe intimidated by people who are giving this perfect polished image across. And I think that 99.9% of people, business owners included, aren't perfect. We're just passionate about something. We want to get it out there into the world. So we're just as we are. And I think that actually appeals to people, because if you put out perfection all the time, it can make people think, hold on a minute, are they editing this? So like editing the truth here. So if things do go wrong, if you do make typos, if your hair isn't perfect, people get to see the real you and they trust you more.
I can totally relate to that. It can feel a bit fake sometimes, doesn't it, when it's all the sort of glossy stuff all of the time. So I totally get that. And I guess leading on from that, what do you think happens to lead generation when someone's hiding behind a brand voice that isn't theirs? They're trying to do something else?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because a brand isn't necessarily just that person, especially if you think of the big brands, the corporates. I think you need to absolutely work out what the brand voice is, first of all. So it's not just this kind of faceless, soulless brand. And then if there are key people within the organisation who do feel good to show up and put themselves out there, then I think do it. And I think it's going to be the way forward, isn't it, as we move even further into this AI-led world that we're living in. It is a tricky one. And I think this is where having teams come in, or having key people that either are the face of the brand or in terms of, if you look at like big sports brands, for example, they're using celebrities as kind of the face of their brand. So it isn't just, somebody sat in an office somewhere. But I think it's something that needs to happen. But I think it starts with that brand voice.
What do you think makes a sales conversation feel human rather than transactional?
Oh, that's a good question. I think actually probably asking questions and listening to what people have to say. So just as an example, at the moment I'm promoting a challenge that I'm doing, and somebody said to me, I invited somebody earlier, I said, somebody I've spoken to before, and I said, this would be perfect for you, would you like to come? First of all, I'm actually remembering who that person is and saying to them, I know this will be right for you. I'm not going to contact somebody that it's totally wrong for. So I'm remembering details about them and remembering that it would be good for them. This person has said to me, oh, I'm actually away at the time. So rather than just say, oh, never mind, or do you want the replays? I'm asking more questions. Where are you going? And we're having that conversation as well. But there's a fine line between conversational, getting into the friend zone, and it feels then really difficult to say, oh, do you actually want to buy this thing? It is. So this is where it's the learned skill. It really is about having the end in mind, if it's right for that person, but just being friendly and talking to people as if they were a friend or they're already a client. So asking questions, I think, and taking a real interest in what people have to say.
How do you teach people to follow up without being pushy? This is something I struggle with.
Everybody does.
Really awkward.
Again, it's doing it in a way that serves them. What I would say is, it wouldn't be right. It would feel horrible to say to somebody, are you buying this? Have you bought it yet? Here's the link. Make sure you buy it. I don't like that. It doesn't serve anybody, and that's probably the fastest way to get ignored. But again, it's when you've asked questions about people's situations and you've figured out that it is going to be the right thing for them, it's using that to give them value. If I was offering somebody done for you lead generation services, and I know that they had a launch coming up next month, I could go back and say to them as a follow-up, we've had the conversation, they've said I need to go away and work out my finances or whatever. I could then go back to them a day or two later and say, look, just thinking about this, actually, if we start next week, we could be nurturing people ready for when you launch in March. So I've taken that information that I know about them, and I'm actually giving them something extra to think about, adding the value there. But that only will come from asking questions and listening to what people are saying and picking out the things that are right for them from your service, or not, as the case may be. And I think that's also important, to be able to say to people, this isn't right for you. Mm-hmm. Another example as well of following up is for things like, for my son, for about 6 months, I wanted to book him in for swimming lessons. And every time I went to do it, I'd just get distracted. I'd put my phone down, the link would be broken or something. And so actually, if somebody that I'd inquired at had said to me, look, you wanted to book this, just book it now while you're sat at your phone, actually, I would have probably found that really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
because you've indicated that you wanted that service, right?
Exactly. I know. So again, that's a mindset thing, isn't it? People are afraid to follow up because they don't want to be pushy. Whereas somebody like me, who's a busy parent, working business owner, I need that push.
Do you think it's a British thing? Do you think it's a bit British?
Do you? I don't know. Possibly. We don't want to offend people. We don't want to overstep the mark. Possibly.
Be a bit pushy.
Yeah. But again, I still wouldn't want to be seen as being pushy. I want to do a service in the right way for somebody. And if somebody says to me, no, not for me, thank you for your time. Not a problem. Let's not take it any further. I'm not going to be pushing something on somebody that doesn't want it.
It's simply following up, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you don't rely on ads or viral content. What does predictable growth look like without those tools?
So I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I do use ads. I have started to use ads. But what I'm saying is...
it's new, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite new for me to use ads. So what I am saying is you don't have to do that. For me, I'm like on a mission to grow, and absolutely. So yes, I'm putting money into ads because it works and it makes things quicker. However, somebody that's got 200 followers on an Instagram account, for example, absolutely does not need to put money into ads to hack the algorithm or anything like that, because if you've got 200 followers, that's 200 potential leads. That's 200 people that have indicated some sort of warm interest in what you have to offer. Absolutely, not all of those people are going to be right for what you have to offer. But I think we forget that that's 200 people or whatever it is sitting there that might need your service. Again, having conversations with people is where it starts. And the predictable element comes into if you reach out and start a conversation with 100 of those people and 20 of them reply. I mean, obviously, the more the better. And then of those 20, you get onto a call with 5 and 1 buys. That there is data that you can then use to predict the rest of your sales. So if you know, okay, out of 200 people, I'm going to get 1 sale. Okay, how do I now get 400 people into my world so I can make another sale, etc.? I'm just plucking those figures out of thin air, by the way. I'm not saying that's necessarily typical, but...
And with those numbers, do you plug them into a system? I know you're a fan of Airtable. So
I am. I love Airtable.
Something that Airtable would be able to help you work out, or do you have to do this manually, or what
again, whatever works. So we love Airtable, and we've got kind of a tracker template on Airtable, and it tracks things like how many touch points somebody needs before they buy. Because again, yes, we're humans and it's people we're dealing with, but actually we can predict quite easily based on typical buying behavior. So yeah, you can do it manually. To be honest with you, when we're sending, I mean, the girls might do something different, but when I'm sending outbound messages to people who I haven't spoken to before, not cold DMs, but like new followers, I just do a tally chart. Okay, I've welcomed 30 new people and X amount of these have replied. So you can use something like Airtable. You could use a simple spreadsheet, or you can do it manually. Again, it doesn't need to be fancy. You don't need these huge audiences to be able to do this.
And what advice would you give people where, you know, they feel like they need a bigger audience before you can sell? Like you're saying there that obviously the numbers can be quite small, but some people just think, oh, you know, I'm on whatever social platform they're on and they've got a tiny audience. Like what sort of things would you be saying to them to give them a bit more confidence?
So I think that there's 2 sides to that. I think it is important to grow your audience, otherwise you're going to stall. And if you are trying to sell to the same people over and over again, they are going to get fed up of you. You know, I've got this now, I've got that now, I've got the other now, unless they're absolute super fans. So you do need to grow your audience. And also I would suggest to grow your audience off social media. So you can do it as a starting point, but, you know, get them onto your email list, get their phone numbers to send them a WhatsApp or a text or whatever. But social media can be a good tool to start with. So I would definitely say to grow an audience, but there are ways to do that aren't just social media or putting money into ads. So that's the first bit. And second bit, again, is I think no matter how big the audience is, just start. Just start talking to people. You can refine it as you go. You only need a handful of people to start talking to. And actually those kind of first adopters, if you like, those early adopters are probably going to be around the longest because they felt like they're on this journey with you. And if you just talk to them like human beings, people are going to warm to you and people are going to be interested in what you have to say.
So if anyone watching or listening is maybe just starting out in their business journey and they're like, lead generation, like where do I even start with this?
What even is it?
Yeah. What would be sort of the one starting point that makes sense for them when it's all new to them?
Understanding, first of all, so this isn't a practical thing, but just understanding what lead generation is basically the process of attracting people who might be interested in your product or service. So I don't think I even knew what lead generation was a few years ago. I was doing it, just having conversations with people. I would start off by thinking, where is your ideal client going to be? So is that on social media? And if it is, what platform are they on? Just bearing in mind that with socials, people don't see much of your content. So that's the first thing. Are they going to be at networking events? Are they going to be reading blogs? Are they going to be in-person rooms? So, do you need to get into in-person events, etc.? So I think that is the most important thing to think about. Where are these leads that I want going to be? And make sure you're there having the conversations, because that's what it's all about. If you're just deciding I'm going to start an Instagram account and post content, there's no strategy behind that.
Yeah, that's it seems so obvious when you say it like that, but I do think people kind of fall into things by accident with no clear strategy. And
Yeah.
especially for people that are just starting out on the business journey and they're thinking, I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this. But actually without ultimately sales, which is what lead generation leads to, you haven't got anything anyway. So that's really interesting.
This is the thing I think about lead generation as well. It's one of those things that people see as it's either boring or it's a nice to have. And it's really not. If you haven't got leads coming in, you haven't got sales and you haven't got a business. So although it is time consuming if you don't outsource it, it's the lifeblood of any business. Because, and even if you're kind of busy with clients now and you let your marketing drop or you let your lead generation drop, when these clients are finished, you've got nobody filling your pipeline here. So it is something that has to be done consistently, as like I say, it's the kind of the lifeblood of a business.
I totally agree. Daisy, you've given me some things to think about, and I'm sure you will have to our viewers and listeners as well. If anyone watching or listening hasn't connected with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Either on Facebook, Daisy Ferns, or I'm on Instagram, I am Daisy Ferns.
Amazing. We'll pop those links in the show notes to make it super easy for people to connect.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you for listening. If you're serious about growing your profile, take our free profile assessment quiz to see where you're at right now and get hints and tips on how to improve your score. You'll find the link to the quiz in the show notes. If you've enjoyed the episode, it would be mint if you'd subscribe, like, and leave a review. See you next Monday.